Okay, hello everyone, this is CounterYolo, bringing you another video in Star Trek Online. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Legendary D7 in the new KDF Captain Bundle that is coming out on April 1st of all days during the year. So anyway, like normal, we'll go over an overview of the starship itself. We'll go through some Starship Comparisons to show its strengths and weaknesses versus some other comparable ships inside of the game. We'll go over some other extras that are included with the Captain Bundle of things that I feel are noteworthy to talk about. And then we'll have a TLDR at the end of the video. Feel free to see the description for time links in the video and other sources, or feel free to see the time bar at the bottom of this video to skip around throughout and such, however you want to see this video. As you can see here from the side, like normal Captain Bundles, this is 12,000 Zen for its base price, with a special discount of 50% off for that first little bit of when this is out. So yeah, that all said, let's get started with talking about this ship. Now, when it comes to Legendary D7, this is the regular TOS era D7. This isn't the Klingon D7, this isn't the Kelvin D7, this is the TOS D7, which many captains of the game consider the real D7. But anyway, this is going to be a battle cruiser, just like that other D7 as well as the D7s from the fleet. Battle cruisers have their master package slightly adjusted. Instead of crit chance, they have extra crit severity in their master package. Now, in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to cruisers, every cruiser's master package is generally pretty terrible, at least when it comes to other subclasses in the game. And battle cruisers are not really an exception. And it's because there's so much extra damage resistance built into the mastery package. It hasn't really scaled as well versus modern Star Trek Online, because we already get a lot of damage resistance innately as part of the Endeavor system. So having some extra force damage resistance in our mastery package as well, it just doesn't scale very well. Fortunately, battle cruisers do get that crit severity. Most other subclasses, it's just the crit chance. Frigates do give crit severity as well, but there's only 2 frigates in the game right now. So pretty much for the vast majority of players, if you're wanting crit severity on a cruiser, on a starship with commander engineering, your choice pretty much is to choose a battle cruiser. Now, outside of that, they're basically like standard cruisers, except you get access to dual cannons. Actually, every subclass of cruiser besides the standard cruisers get access to dual cannons nowadays. But otherwise, they have the rough maneuverability of the regular types of the regular cruisers subclass. But you don't get command and tracked fire, which situationally can be not as great for tanking captains. And you don't get any hangar bays. And that's probably the biggest thing against battle cruisers, frankly. They aren't the most maneuverable. But they have some decent damage potential, but there's no hangar bays to supplement that. So it's basically you do your damage with your weapons, or you just are kind of out of luck. When it comes to this Legendary D7, its stats are a bit higher than what you would expect for the average battle cruiser. And it actually is pretty maneuverable, like to be honest here. Like one of the examples of what I predicted for what the Legendary D7 was going to be was that they chose the bridge officer to be Commander Intel and Lieutenant Commander Miracle Worker. Now, when it comes down to that, this is a combination that we have not seen inside the game yet. We have seen Miracle Worker Intel on the promo Inquiry class on Battle Cruiser, but we haven't seen the inverse yet, which is interesting. When it comes to this ship, otherwise, it's extremely flexible. The only technical downside for DPS captains is that you have a lieutenant science seat. So if you want to do an Oxbat build, it's going to have to be a half-bat build pretty much. And you'll use one Photonic Officer ability and one Ox to Battery ability in your build. Otherwise, it's pretty decent and pretty well-rounded overall. It's got battle cruiser commands. It has a battle cloak on the ship. The new trait we'll talk about later in the video. It's pretty much meant for just for tanking. We also get a new console with this bundle. It's not actually part of the Starship though, so it's kind of we aren't really sure whether that's just going to be just for one character and it's kind of like just this one-off console, or if it's actually for your whole count. You just have to reclaim it elsewhere. In terms of the skins available to the ship, big things is that we've got a new skin which has a lot of detail. Of course, you have the classic Katinga stuff, regular TOS D7, and a kind of like a more nicer looking D7 as well. But there's also the Romulan D7 in here as well that has that bird motif on the bottom. So technically, there's actually two skins with this, even though this one's probably just the bird motif added to this D7. So you could consider this two different skins. I'm wondering if that bird motif will be available to other skins in this thing, or if you have to have the Romulan D7 to get that bird motif. We'll see. It's because it is the TOS D7, regardless of whatever bridge I've seen that it was, because it's an account unlocked D7. I'm going to be getting it, just in case y'all are wondering. But for those of you that don't really care about, looks, and you're looking at this thing just from a performance perspective, we'll go through the Starship Comparisons section now and show you how this measures up to other starships inside of the game. To start off with, we'll show you the Tier 5 D7s, or at least ships that are close to the D7. The Fleet Katinga is the true Fleet D7. Keep in mind, its bridge off receiving is pretty awkward. You only have 3 tactical abilities in total, and 2 of them are forced ensign abilities of those 3, which means you can't, for instance, get scatter volley in the build and an attack pattern, which is a pretty big downside. The Fleet Camarag is a little bit better, in my opinion. You're able to have 5 tactical abilities potentially, and with the Technomare Science, it's really easy to help out more with your cooldowns if you want to use Photonic Officer too. You lose 1 tactical console, but otherwise these are both decent battle cruisers. The Camarag does have different looks to the Katinga, but in my opinion, they are at least in the rough ballpark. And so with the Camarag, we have 2 different tier 6s. If you wanted to use the Camarag skin still, there is the Fleet Viral, and there is the Legendary Vorcha. With a more recent patch notes, dev notes, whatever it's called, they have confirmed that they have supposedly fixed these ships so that these ships can use the Camarag skin. We'll see if that's actually the case. I'm sure some of you are probably going to get a comment in the comments whether that's still the case or not. The Fleet Viral is a nice starship. You don't have any force science seating on this ship, but it is a 4/4, so that it just like the other fleet starships. So it is something to keep in mind. Now that it's been a long time since the Narendra and Viral have come out, I've come to like the Viral a bit better than the Narendra now. But that's just me being me. Then again, when it comes to the Enterprise C, just the regular skin, it's great the way it is. The Vorcha is Commander Command and Lieutenant Mirror, but you have to buy the 2021 Legendary Bundle or 11th Anniversary Bundle. And for 4 starships, paying for the price of what you paid for 10 ships last year, it wasn't really that great of a value. But that bundle was pretty much carried by this one ship, so if you like this ship, you probably already have this thing. And so in terms of the actual stats, they are similar. The TOS D7 is a little bit more maneuverable, but it's not meant for torpedoes. It's meant for energy-based weapons instead of torpedoes and mines. In terms of real starships, if you want the actual TOS D7 skin, the promo D7 was your option. A lot of captains did not like the aspect that it had a Force Lieutenant Bearer Science, so that was just Lieutenant Science. And some captains would have preferred to have Lieutenant Universal and Ensign. I personally like triple lieutenant commander with commander, but I know that that's not everyone's cup of tea. So I definitely get it. Just as a reminder to everyone, the point of legendary starships isn't for it to quintessentially be the absolute best version of a tier 6 starship. The point for it is to, I mean, if its only predecessors was fleet starships and sea-source starships, then clearly the legendary one should be better. But if there was previous low-buy, lockbox, or promo ships, the point for it isn't to necessarily be stronger, but just have a different take on how the ship is supposed to be. The promo D7, it is leaning on recursive shearing 3. It's basically what it comes down to. If you really want recursive shearing 3 on a D7 look, the promo D7 is going to be a better starship for you, which means it's going to have greater damage potential, frankly. If you don't care about that and just want to count and log look, the legendary D7 is still going to be a fantastic option for you, and it still has some pretty nice flexibility from both a DPS standpoint as well as a tanking standpoint. I'll give you a couple of options for tanking, and when it comes to the bridge officer seating itself, towards the very end of the video. The Kelvin D7 is a fantastic starship as well. It's the KDF version of the lockbox Kelvin heavy destroyer, but this one is the exact same stats with a battle cloak. So great starship, although it doesn't have any full-on commander specialist seating, so that's a slight downside. We have very few starships in the game that are destroyers with 5 forward weapons. We have a lot more 5 forward weapon warship, but not very many destroyers. So slight upside, slight downside for that type of ship. Typically, when you go on the exchange, the Kelvin D7 is pretty highly priced. And it's just the way it is. Maybe with this new ship that's coming out, that Kelvin D7 will get cheaper, but we will see in time. If what you're about is flight deck carriers, there is the C-Store Cardassian Intel flight deck carrier, which has Commander Intel. And it has similar bridge officer seating. For that slight downside, you have one less tactical console and much more forced bridge officer seating with that forced Lieutenant Commander Engineering that doesn't have a secondary specialization there. Really, the difference between this ship and the Suban Silk is that one has a cloak versus battle cloak, and the Suban Silk is more of an Ox to Bat setup. Now, the Suban Silk also has Lieutenant Commander Command, so it also works as a torpedo platform too. So that's your thing. That is definitely your thing. Upgrades for these, at least from a tanking perspective, would be the Legendary Discovery Constitution for a build that's relying upon Photonic Officer with the improved Photonic Officer trait. And if you're doing an Ox to Bat setup, the Promo Discovery D7 is a fantastic option too. Again, I thought that the KDF Legendary KDF Captain Bundle was going to be doing the Discovery D7 with how much they were emphasizing Discovery Klingon looks in this last expansion or last couple of missions that they came out with. But I guess they decided that the TOS one was just going to sell better. So they're having the TOS one first at least. Now when it comes to battle cruisers, if you wanted to do apples to apples comparisons versus a bundle from last year, this new TOS D7 is objectively better than the Legendary Kelvin Constitution. They're both battle cruisers, both Commander Intel. Basically same seating, besides the fact that you're placing a Lieutenant Commander Intel seat with a Lieutenant Commander Merrick Worker seat. Stats are either higher or the same for the base stats here. And this thing's got a battle cloak as well. So I know that, and again, a lot of the ship appeals can be Space Barbie. So if you're about Space Barbie, there's definitely going to be that thing for the ship still as well. The Fleet Kurik and Moog battle cruiser, or the Arbiter / Avenger for the Fed side, also has similar things to this as well. Just no full intel and some other really different force seating as well. Again, you know, if you're more of a tanking captain, the low buy Vengeance Dreadnought Cruiser is definitely an option. Keep in mind, its crit chance instead of crit severity for its mastery package. Same thing with the Galaxy deck, which is basically just a slightly worse version of the Vengeance, but it is a count unlock. And it has command instead of temporal for its secondary specialization. Otherwise, fairly similar in terms of what those things offer you as well. And again, as I've mentioned earlier, I think I've mentioned earlier, our D7 Intel Battlecruiser, in many ways, pretty much is just the Inquiry Battlecruiser, but the KDF version of this ship, and you're flipping the Commander and Lieutenant Commander specialization. Instead of Miracle Worker Intel, this ship is Intel Miracle Worker. Otherwise, in terms of base stats, they're about the same, or this one's actually a little bit better in terms of maneuverability versus this ship. 1.45 to 1.15 shields, this thing's close enough. That for me, the differences between these things are fairly minor. It's basically a difference in the grand scheme of things of how you'd probably build this thing. Unless you're about exceeded rating limits 3 and really need that extra universal console, I consider the TOS D7 basically on par with the promo Inquiry Battlecruiser. So, especially in the tanking realm, they are fairly similar. Now, there is the Miracle Worker Battlecruisers from the fleet that are similar in terms of overall offensive effectiveness to the promo Inquiry. A little bit lower hull means you're going to have slightly less crit chance from Tyler's duality, but otherwise they're going to be in the same rough ballpark as well. So there's definitely that. But again, at the very end of the day, most of you watching this video are probably going to buy this thing more because of the looks. And when it comes to the looks, it's still a fine starship. I mean, we also have the TOS Connie and the TOS Talist that have been released previously. The TOS D7 makes sense that it's going to join that lineup as well. So, if you like the starship, you wanted a count unlocked for all of your characters, this is definitely going to be a decent option for you. Now, when it comes to the extra stuff, we are getting 2 consoles with this. We have the magnetometric generator, which is just a cone disabled to enemies. It does a little bit of damage as well. Not really something that's noteworthy. But there's also the ominous device, which, if you're leveling a new character, or you're eventually going through your reputations to get better consoles and such, 20% all damage is not a bad console. Now, granted, it's limited to very specific starships like the TOS D7, but it's not a bad console. It's just not a fantastic console whenever you get to endgame stuff. But 20% all damage with an ability very similar to the Viral Impulse Burst Clicky. It's not an ability that I would choose normally from the Intel abilities, but having it built into the console, it's not terrible. Keep in mind, we are getting a new console as well. That's part of that level 65 level up part of this bundle. The Stasis Field Projector doesn't have any listed stuff, and it's active. It's just by that it debilitates up to 3 nearby enemies. The exact text here says, "This never before seen released universal console offers the power to severely debilitate up to 3 nearby enemies with the press of just 1 button." Okay. That doesn't really give us too much here. So, because of that, I can't really judge whether this console is going to be good or not. It's got no listed passive. Doesn't mean that it can't. We just don't know at this point. I'm sure the 10 Forward Weekly next week, it's going to show off what this stuff can do, and they'll probably clarify whether this is just for one character, or if this will actually be reclaimable somewhere else in the C-Store after you claim the bundle. For a lot of the bundles out there, that you get stuff that's not through the starships, there's sometimes in other sections of the C-Store where you can reclaim those aspects. Like, for instance, in the Gemini Vanguard really big Gamma Pack, the 3 Gemidar Vanguard bridge officers are claimable in the bridge officer section. You know, instead of having to click that bundle again and again and again for different characters, you just go to that bridge officer section to claim those bridge officers. I don't know if this is going to be like that, or if this is just going to be like this one-off fun console that's not meant to be account unlocked. Not really sure on that. There are bridge officers, not really that big of a deal. It's Klingon, Gorn, Orion, and Oskin. Frankly, they aren't meta for space, like, at all. Or ground, really. Some of the best ground stuff for KDF are some alien science officers available to buy through just dilithium. And I can show y'all where that is in a different video. But super budget stuff, that's the only way to beat it for ground is to go to the fleet embassy and buy very rare Romulan science officers to beat those ones. So sure, you're getting some extra credits, expertise, dilithium stuff, some specialization qualifications, and bridge officer slots, and some extra bridge officer stuff, so that you can add those bridge officers, add the starship. You know, and that's mainly in case you're going to do this on a character that already is basically maxed out at 65. I don't think it's that huge of a deal, frankly. But it's there if you want it. I really think the big thing about this level of 65 is, let's say, for instance, you started a new KDF captain, like during the KDF recruitment event, and you just played them for a couple of missions and then you got bored. And they're like, nah, I'll come back to this later. I just want to go to my main character and keep on doing the endeavors each day. With this, now you could potentially go back to that character, immediately use this, get to level 65, and boom, you have cross-faction flying available to your whole account now. And that's really, I think, where the biggest underlying thing of this is. If you're someone who hasn't gotten a pure KDF character to level 65 yet, and you've only been playing Fed side forever, and you have a character to 65 already over there, you can start a new character and finish the tutorial, immediately use this, and now you've got a new KDF character to level 65 and cross-faction flying unlocked for your account. Many of us probably already have that, but you know, especially if you're brand new and you're somehow watching this video, that is technically an option for you too. As for the Starship traits, we have one old one and one new one. The old one is built to last. I talked about this a lot, so you can go back to older videos if you want to see me go more in depth into this. Basically, TLDR, because of the Endeavor system, this thing is not super strong anymore. It is a nice filler trait if you don't have stuff that's better, but extra passive hull regeneration based upon your current HP from doing hull healing on your starship. The extra hull regen is only really strong whenever you have low HP. And frankly, most tanks are going to stay above 75% hull HP. So maybe you're getting 30 to 50% hull regeneration off of this trait. You're already getting in that rough realm just from the Endeavor system itself. At this point in Star Trek Online, I'd rather have increases to hull healing than that passive hull regeneration to your starship. Which means the only big draw left for this trait is the hull healing gives you significant power cost reduction to your starship. And again, power is less of a concern in modern Star Trek Online than it has been in years past. I could go into math in a video, but I'm just not really excited to do that, frankly. The new starship trait is Shall We Not Revenge. I think I put that there right. I don't know. With this trait, when you use hull healing bridge officer abilities or intelligence bridge officer abilities, you trigger an effect that reflects a percentage of the damage that you're receiving back at attackers. Really awkwardly worded in their blog. Pretty much, whenever you use hull healing bridge officer abilities or intelligence bridge officer abilities, you get a version of feedback pulse added to your starship. That's worded its way so that regular feedback pulse traits don't trigger off of this effect. That was why they worded it the way that they did. And they also worded it so that if you do more healing and intelligence abilities, it increases that percentage reflected back, but it doesn't refresh or increase the duration of this actual effect. When it comes to the meta, it's possible, if this is really strong, it'll bring us back to a meta almost like improved feedback pulse. For those of you who were around back then, that was a crazy time where tanks actually did the most damage in ISA and ISE. So yeah, I hope it's not that extreme. I think we've gotten to a point in this game now where even if that trait was added back into the game at the strength it was at that time, and the consoles from the Fleet Embassy were added back at the strength that they were back then, I think it still wouldn't affect the meta that much, besides tanks. The big concerns, obviously, without an ability to refresh or extend the duration, as a tank captain, it's important to know, how much uptime are we going to have on this thing? How much downtime is there going to be between times where this reflection is going to be up? If it's not up at least 50% of the time, I'm probably going to veer towards a different trait. How much damage is actually going to be reflected? If it's not very much, well, whatever. And, it's also important to know, when in different TFOs, how much damage the enemy is actually able to deal towards me, because that's kind of important too. And we need to know as well, does this reflection scale with anything? Back in the day, feedback pulse scaled really hard off of aux power and off of EPG. And feedback pulse also used to be its own separate damage type, and then it was changed to just whatever damage type was coming at you as what was reflected back. I think that was better, but that's kind of important. Then again, they did clarify in the text that this reflection back is always going to be disruptor damage. So perhaps this is trying to push more towards disruptor damage for the meta for tanking, at least for energy-based tanking going forward. But again, that has to be if this is a really, really strong trait. We don't know. And when it comes to a lot of these texts, for a lot of these traits in the game and consoles and such, the unfortunate thing about Star Trek Online is that they don't show formulas. So a lot of it just comes down to just testing. We find out, okay, is this strong? Is this weak? Is this average? We'll have to know. And honestly, when it comes down to it though, at the end of the day, people are probably going to buy this ship to actually fly this ship. A lot of them probably don't care about this new trait. People are going to fly the ship because they want to fly the ship, and buy the ship because they want to just fly the ship for a lot of characters. For some tanking options before we get to the TLDR, me looking at it, this is how I would probably build it. If I was going to do a fireable tank, this is how I'd probably build it. My general rules for tanking, by the way, is I like to have at least 3 whole heals. So 1, 2, 3 whole heals in here. For tactical abilities, I like to have tactical team and attack pattern, and the highest rank of whatever AoE weapon enhanced ability that I have, whether that's Firewall or Scatter Volley. And then for the ensign ability, Torpedo Spread, if it's going to be Fire at Will, so that I can keep 100% uptime on my Fire at Will with the Entwined Tactical Matrices trait. If it's Scatter Volley, I like to just slot in Chemosite Lace Weaponry. And then from there, it just depends upon the starship. For these pick starships, Miracle Worker is really nice, so Mixed Armor Synergy and Neurosensor Bands 3 is nice to have in here. Additionally, for engineering abilities, I like to have Merge-Powered Weapons and Merge-Powered Engines alongside Reverse Shield Polarity at whatever highest rank that is possible for the starship. There are some unique situations where that might not necessarily be the immediate go-to depending upon the starship, but for most starships, it's Reverse Shield Polarity at whatever highest rank that's possible. And again, alongside that, either double Octobat, half bat, or something of the like to keep it to deal with cooldowns, and then 3 whole heals from there. So for the Fire Will tank option, this one's pretty straightforward here. This is for a Cannon Scatter Volley tank option with Tank Officer, with either the Improved Tank Officer trait or the Arrest trait as starship traits. Tank Officer 1 works with that, although there is going to be some slight cooldown issues. That's not 100% uptime, but it's near 100% uptime. So for me, as a tank, this is fine. If you're going to do a half-bat option, this is my recommendation. It would be to actually make this Lieutenant Commander seat engineering instead of tactical. And then you move engineering team up and you add in construction shuttle wing into an extra ability here. So you still have 1, 2, 3 whole heals in the build itself. Now my recommendation normally for a lot of these builds is to have this Lieutenant seat be tactical for this particular starship, just because if you're going to do a Polaron variant, Polaron requires extra tactical abilities, frankly, in order for it to work. You're required basically to use all 3 normal tactical abilities of, can scatter volley, firewall, or beam overload alongside torpedo spread. And so if you're going to do a firewall build, you'll have torpedo spread and scatter volley 1. If you're going to use scatter volley, you'll have torpedo spread and beam overload. Beam overload instead of firewall, because beam overload has a 15-second cooldown, while firewall has a 20-second cooldown. So if you're going to do Polaron, beam overload, what you're going to use if you're going to use scatter volley for your threat. Otherwise, yeah, those are my general recommendations for tanking. I'm sure people are going to be showing off their DPS builds, because most other YouTubers for Star Trek Online will do DPS builds. So feel free to seek them out if you're looking for other types of builds for the new Legendary TOS D7. All right, so for the TLDW of this video, we are getting a new Legendary D7 inside the game, and it is the TOS D7, not the Kelvin D7, not the Discovery D7. It is a TOS D7, and it is a battle cruiser as its subclass. It's the first tier 6 D7 that's like a true D7, not like a pseudo D7, but actually a true D7 available from the C-Store. In terms of its stats and stuff itself, it's pretty much the Inquiry Battlecruiser, but the Miracle Worker and Intel seats are flipped, and it's an account unlockable starship. You buy it once and it's available to all of your characters. It does technically get 2 new skins. It's got a new STO skin that you can see right here, and then there's also the Romulan bird motif below the classic TOS D7 skin. That's also going to be available as part of this bundle. For the initial pricing, it's 12k Zen with a 50% off for the first little bit for being 6,000 Zen. As to remind everybody, Star Trek Online values that level 65 boost at 6,000 Zen, and Star Trek Online values legendary starships at 6,000 Zen. That is why this bundle is 12k in terms of its base Zen price, and it's why the Mirror Dreadnought bundle was 6,000 Zen for the base price, because it did not have that level 65 boost. It has its old consoles and does technically have a new console, but we don't know if it's going to be available to just one character or for all of your characters, because it's through that level 65 boost where you get that extra console. For the new trait, it's basically a different version of feedback pulse that you get via using heals and intel abilities. So it's going to be a trait that's really just for tank captains, and we don't know the stats to know if this is going to be a great trait or if it's going to be a meh trait. So we will have to see in time as to how good that trait is going to be. I'll obviously have the traits, so I'll probably be able to tell you all pretty quickly as to whether it's going to be a good trait or not. But anyway, that's basically it for this video. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I know that I've been away for a couple weeks. There have been some issues, and then there was the drama with Timberwolf, and I've been doing what I can to look into things. And again, I don't like to just jump to conclusions, but there are definitely some bad outlooks in terms of the situation that he is in. So I will continue to keep on asking people. Hopefully more people respond to what I'm asking. I'm trying to be respectful and reasonable. And I'm trying to stay in the middle. I'm also trying to decide whether I'm actually going to put it on YouTube regularly. I'm just going to make it an unlisted video and just have links to it for a couple of weeks whenever it's done. Or if I just start streaming on Twitch every once in a while, maybe I'll just upload the video there instead. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. I am definitely going to do the video, but I might not publish it like I publish regular videos on this channel. It's still something that I am thinking about and contemplating. But yeah, and because of all that, that's why videos have been a little bit delayed as well on the channel. But TLDR for the other stuff, in terms of the voting for the polls recently, I will get those videos out. It will take a little bit longer, and some of the videos for this month will come out next month. Some of the videos that I had initially planned to finish and come out next month will probably come out towards the end of April or in early May. That is my plan right now. We will see how things go. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.